Hello everyone, and today our topic of discussion will be blood pressure measurement. As by name, um, it suggests that there will be some methods that we can use, we are exploiting in our daily life to measure the blood pressure. So, mainly two types of blood pressure measurement techniques are used, like the invasive technique and the non-invasive technique. So, invasive means something we are inserting into our body or through our skin. Suppose this is an arm, so we are inserting a needle into our arm. That this technique is known as the invasive technique. When we penetrate through the skin, then the technique will be called as invasive technique. And non-invasive technique is when we are recording something, when we are measuring something from without any penetration into our skin. So we will be studying about blood pressure through our notes. So, like the definition of blood pressure. So, coming to the definition of blood pressure. So, it is the pressure exerted by circulating blood on the walls of the blood vessel. So, let us explain this. Let us understand this. So, like suppose it is a blood vessel, and the blood is flowing into this blood vessel, and the force exerted on these walls of the vessel, and the force calculated per area, which will be the pressure, and this pressure is called the blood pressure. So here it is written, arteries and veins have different pressure levels because they have different thickness, they have different type of blood, they have different thickness. So normal normal resting blood pressure in an adult is 120/80 millimeter of mercury. So mercury here is used in an instrument for measuring the pressures. So as I said before, there are two categories of blood pressure measurement: the non-invasive blood pressure measurement and the invasive blood pressure measurement. The non-invasive techniques include the oscillator method. Oscillator method. So coming to this, um, so the principle of an oscillator is that the rubber cuff stops the blood flow of the stethoscope or pressure sensor does not detect any pressure. When the valve is released and the artery is opened, the blood flow causes the pressure fluctuation in the cuff, which is recorded by the stethoscope or a pressure sensor. So what it is trying to say is, suppose it is our arm, like we go to the hospital or we go for the blood pressure measurement. We have seen that in our arm they tie a cuff around our arm like that, and then they inflate this cuff so that the blood starts flowing into this arm or into this area. Okay, so when the blood pressure stops, then they release this. Suppose this is an inflating device. So then they deflate this, starts to deflate this cuff by opening or by loosening up the valve here. Then they also put a stethoscope around it and listen to the voices of the pressure or of the flow of the blood. Okay, so let us go in detail of this. The first pressure is the systolic pressure. Systolic pressure is the peak pressure in the arteries which occurs near the end of the cardiac cycle. Okay, when the ventricles are contracting. So We have to remember this when the ventricles are contracting, then the pressure exerted or measured is the systolic pressure. Now coming to the diastolic pressure. Diastolic pressure is the minimum pressure in the arteries which occurs nearly in the beginning of the cardiac cycle when the ventricles are filled with blood. So we can say that we can see that when the ventricles are full of blood, the minimum pressure in the arteries is called the diastolic pressure. Then coming out to the stethoscope part. The oscillatory method uses a stethoscope and a sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer is, please learn the spelling of this instrument. It comprises of an inflatable cuff which placed around an upper arm at roughly the same vertical height as the heart and attached to the mercury or aneroid manometer. So let us take a page to understand this thing. Okay, so we read here some lines then that I'm going to explain you. So stethoscope and sorry about the spelling if it's wrong. That's why I'm saying that you have to learn it. So what does the sphygmomanometer do? So it comprises of a cuff, like I said. Suppose this is a patient sitting in a resting position. Here we have his arms like this. So here is the cuff which is attached, and it is attached normally in the alignment of heart. Like you have here heart. I'm drawing like this only because it is very difficult to draw a real heart here. So he said it comprises of an inflatable cuff. Inflatable cuff means that a cuff which can be inflatable, or it can we can pump in some air in it. Okay, placed around an upper arm at roughly the same vertical height as the heart, attached to a mercury or an aneroid manometer. So it is attached to a manometer. You have seen like this. The instrument is like this. Here is the pressure monitor, and here is the box of this like this. So it is attached, and it is very simple. So mercury manometer is considered to be the gold standard for measuring the atrial pressure, as it measures the height of the column of mercury, giving an absolute result without the need of calibration. So it does not require any calibration, and it measures the pressure accurately. Okay, coming to the next point, working and measurement. Okay, so as we have discussed in brief about the working, I'm going to explain it again. A cuff of an appropriate size is fitted and inflated manually by repeatedly squeezing the rubber bulb until the artery is completely occluded. Occluded means blocked. Listening with the stethoscope to the brachial artery at the elbow. Remember, we measure, we listen to the brachial artery flow at the elbow. The examiner slowly releases the pressure in the cuff. When the blood starts to just flow in the artery, the turbulent flow creates a whooshing or a pounding sound that is known as the Krotov sound. Remember this word, Krotov, Korotkov, actually, sound. The pressure at which this sound is heard is systolic blood pressure. So, firstly, the which is heard, first sound heard is the is of the systolic blood pressure. So the cuff, coming to the last point, the cuff pressure is further released until no sound can be heard. It is called the fifth Korotkov sound, and this one is called the diastolic blood pressure. So this is enough for our knowledge till now. And some of the disadvantage of non-invasive blood pressure is that it does not provide any continuous pressure monitoring, and also it does not provide the wave of the pressure. This is it about non-invasive blood pressure.